Hello class, this is Mr. Eggleston and this is the Algebra 1 Spring Final Review. The first question most students have about the final is always how many questions? There are a total of, looks like 25 questions. Yes, 25 questions. All right, I give you the answers too, by the way. So let's go through and do this. I'll probably do this in two videos, 1 through 11, then 12 through 25. All right, the first question is hearkening back to Unit 6, talking about is this statement right here, a squared times b to the 6th power, is that equal to a squared times, or is it equal a to the 2nd b to the 6th? Okay, this is just basic properties of exponents. When you raise a power to when you raise a product to a power, you just distribute. So that should be a to the 2nd times 6, b to the 6th. So the actual correct choice is a to the 12th, b to the 6th. So this is false. And it says, if false, please give correct answer. This is the correct answer. All right, then it says simplify. Your answer should contain only positive exponents. These are pure properties of exponents. This is the product property, okay? So we take the two numbers because we're multiplying. What's 4 times 3 is 12, all right? And then we multiply together the x to the 4th and the x to the 3rd. So that is this. And then we have y to the 4th times y. So this is 12 x to the, now when you multiply powers, these are powers, remember? When we multiply these together, we add the exponents. So 4 plus 3 is 7. And then we have y to the 4th, and then this y. Now, guys and ladies, I should say, when there's no exponent shown on any variable, there's always, that implies there's a 1 there. It's to the first. They don't put the 1. Just like when you see x by itself, that really is 1 times x. They just don't write the 1. So don't forget that this y to the 4th and this y becomes y to the 4th times y to the 1st. You add the exponents, that's y to the 5th. And that is the answer. Number 3, I would distribute this exponent in against everything on the inside. So that would be 4 to the negative 4th, x to the 4 times negative 4, and y to the negative 4 times negative 4. All right, so 4 to the negative 4th, this is going to be x to the negative 16th, and this right here, negative 4 times negative 4 is y to the positive 16th. Now, one of the big things you have to remember is that when you have negative exponents, it makes the base kind of sad. It does not want to stay put. So these two things have negative exponents. So we're going to move them downstairs. So this would be, now we'd have 4 to the 4th, x to the 16th. Notice the exponents change signs when we move them. And the y to the 16th is on top. All right? These are not that hard, but you got to be able to do them. So, okay. All right. Now we have this one. Notice we have 4 over 3. There's nothing we can do. Those are just like any other 4 over 3. There's, you could either write that as 1.1 1/3 or 1.333 or just leave it as 4/3. Now we are dividing x to the 3rd and x squared, just like with multiplication, and we added. Remember if we had x to the 3rd times x squared, we add the exponents. Here The opposite of multiplication is division. This is division. So, and the opposite of addition is subtraction. So this would be x to the third, or it'll be 3 minus 2 is 1. And since the variable, the exponent's positive, it's x to the first on top. Now this y to the negative 4 and y to the negative 3, I just flip-flop them because remember, negative exponents want to move. So this is y to the fourth now, positive on bottom, and y to the third on top. Now that it's written like this, we subtract the exponents because we are dividing. And 4 minus 3 is 1, and the highest power is on bottom, and that's where the variable stays. And so that's the answer right here. Again, I like to move the exponents when they're negative. You could have just written this as, I guess, another way of looking at this would have been 4 over 3, just like before, because those are just numbers. Now, x to the third divided by x squared is x to the first. And then this is y to the negative 4 minus a negative 3. So this would be y to the negative 4 minus a negative 3. When you subtract a negative, you add, and combining these gives you 4/3 x y to the negative 1. Because negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. But now you're going to have to remember, hey, I have to move the negative exponent downstairs. I am not a big fan of doing it that way. I much prefer to make, if the exponent's negative, like these are, I just flip-flop them. The y to the negative third goes up, the y to the negative 4 goes downstairs, and the exponents change signs. Then you don't have to deal with negative numbers and stuff. But you end up with the same answer either way. Okay, on this case, number 5, I would have taken care of the negative exponents. So the v to the negative 3, I'm going to move that downstairs. And now it's a positive v to the 3. And then we have this. All right? So this is going to be 4 on top, 3 on bottom. We have v to the third, and u squared. I'm sorry. This is v cubed and v squared. That's a v, not a u. So we add the exponents with the v. So v cubed, v squared is v to the fifth, u squared, and that would be the answer. Okay, I'm not going to check to see if I'm right, because I know I am. But you can. The answers are posted below. All right, on this, you have to remember that the radical, they want you to write this with exponents instead of radicals. So what you have to remember is a root, that the square root is just, if this is square root of a, this is just a to the 1/2 power. Okay? And if it's a cube root, the cube root of a is just a to the 1/3 power. So with that in mind, what we have here is the square root of a to the third. Square root of a is a to the 1/2. So this is a cubed, because that's what's inside, raised to the 1/2 power. When you raise a power to a power, you multiply the exponents. And you have that. On b, very similar. The cube root is to the 1/3 power, so that's 2 to the 4th raised to the 1/3. And then you multiply the exponents, that's 2 to the 4/3 power. And the last one is y, cube root of y. That's just y to the 1/3 power. It basically is this, except for instead of a, it's y. All right? That's what it means to rewrite rational expressions with exponents instead of radicals. Okay? On 7, They give you the graph. I give you the equation, but they give you the graph is shown. They want you just to identify the domain and range. So what you have to remember is domain equals input, which for all intents and purposes is x. All right? So you would see that if you just watch this graph and move along the x-axis, it begins at -3 and is then everywhere to the right of -3. So we would say the domain is all reals, because it's every real number. X is greater than or equal to -3. It's greater than or equal to on this because at x equals -3, you know the graph is there. It's right there. Okay? So, and then the range is all the y values. And so if you're kind of cruising along the y-axis, you'll see that the graph begins here at 2 and then shows everywhere above 2. So the range would be all real numbers. Y is greater than or equal to 2. Oh my gosh, that's invisible ink. Y is greater than or equal to 2. And there you go. All right. Okay, 8 is an interesting question. This is came from something similar to the worksheets you've seen. They gave you f of x, g of x, and h of x. And they want you to, order from greatest, which is the biggest output, to least, which is the smallest output. So basically, they want to know, you have to evaluate f of 4. So f of 4 is 4 to the 1/2. 4 to the 1/2 is the square root of 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. So this one's 2. G of 6 means you put 6 in for x, and that becomes 6 squared, which is 36. And h of x, h of 49, just means it's they want you to evaluate the square root of 49, which happens to be 7. So you have basically 2, 36, or 7. So they want you to order the following from greatest. Well, the greatest is 36, and that's g of 6. So g of 6 is the greatest. Then the next greatest would be 7, and that's h of 49. And then the smallest would be 2, and that is f of 4. And there you go. That's ordering them from biggest or greatest to smallest. Again, you had to plug the numbers in. I just wrote the results right below. So f of 4 is 2. G of 6 is 36. H of 49 is 7. And that helped me order them. 36 is the biggest. That's G of 6. That's this, because that's this term. And then H of 49 is the next largest, because that's 7, and that's H of 49. And then F of 4 is right here, because f of 4 is 4 to the 1/2 power, which is the square root of 4, which is 2, and that's the smallest. All right, question 9, they want you just to solve this equation. This is from Unit 6, the last lesson in Unit 6 about the basic idea of solving equations. And in this case, we have to strip everything off of basically this thing right there, that fourth root of 9a. So notice we are adding 3 to it, and then multiplying it by 5. So the first thing we need to do is to drop opposites, because I'm starting to strip everything away from the fourth root. So this is the 5 times the fourth root of 9a equals 18 minus 3 is 15. Now we're multiplying, because again, our goal is to get this by itself. And so think in terms of, okay, I'm multiplying this fourth root by 5. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 5? That is dividing by 5, both sides. Okay, that leaves us with the fourth root of 9a equals 15 divided by 5 is 3. Now the fourth root, how do we undo taking the fourth root? What's the opposite of taking the fourth root? Again, our goal is to denude this, or to strip off that fourth root. So to get rid of a fourth root, we would have to raise both sides to the fourth power, because they undo each other. All right? If this had been a fifth root, then it'd be to the fifth power. If it had been the square root, it'd have been squared, or to the second power. But this is the fourth root. So now we have 9a equals whatever 3 to the fourth is. You have calculators. You would realize 3 to the fourth is 81 if you typed it in. And then when you divide by 9, a equals 81 divided by 9 is not 3, it's 9. And so the answer is 9. All right? You could check it if you wanted, because this is solving an equation. So you could take the 9, plug it in for a here, and go 9 times 9 is 81. The fourth root of 81, if you do it on your calculator, is 3. And then 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 does equal 18. That number works. All right? The next one is just solving this equation, a radical equation. Notice our goal is to solve for p. And they do recommend that you check for extraneous solutions, because this sometimes happens with these kind of problems. An extraneous solution is if you get solutions and they don't actually work. That if you plug them back in, you don't get a true statement. So, again, our goal is to strip everything away from the square root. From that, we have to denude it. So we are adding a negative 3 to the square root. So I'm going to go ahead and add a positive 3, because these cancel out. And now we have the square root of, not 9, but of p, a little dyslexic, over 2 equals 9. Then we have to get rid of the square root. What's the opposite of square rooting? We take the square. All right, and then we get p over 2 equals 81, because that's what 9 squared is. Now we're dividing 2, or p by 2, so to undo division, we are going to multiply. So p equals 81 times 2, which is 162, and that's the answer. All right, 2 times 80 is 160, 2 times 1 is 2, yeah, it's 162. All right, here's the last one I'm going to do on this part of the video, and then I'm going to do the second video, picking up on 12. Okay, on this, they just want you to identify the translations, all right? In other words, how does this graph move? So when the number's holding hands with the x, like right there, that means the graph is going to move left or right. And then when the number's not holding hands with the x, but outside, like that, -6, that's going to move the graph up and down. Now, to help you with this, I've always told you, remember, your x's are liars. So when you see a x plus 4, basically set that equal to 0, because we just want to know what value of x makes that 0. And you'll see that's x equals -4. So we shifted the graph left, because it's negative, 4 units. Not only that, we moved the graph down 6 units. Okay. And there you go. And that's the end of this video, and I'll pick up on the next one.